Hello students, welcome to online course of Mechanical Measurement and Metrology. Myself Abhishek Trivedi from Mechanical Engineering Department at LJ Institute of Engineering and Technology. In the previous lecture, we have started a new chapter, Mechanical Systems and Basic Concept of Measurement Methods. In the last lecture, we have covered the topic named as Static Characteristics of Measurement, in which we have discussed number of definitions, or we can say number of terms which are directly related to the characteristics of measurement, like accuracy, precision, calibration, threshold, resolution, drift, dead zone, and so on. Today we are going to discuss the topic named as errors in a measurement, and lastly we are concluding a lecture with transducers. Okay, then let's start with errors in a measurement. In the previous chapter number first, Introduction to Metrology, we have already discussed the number of errors, the types of errors, and the brief classification of the errors like gross error, random error, environmental error, observational error, operational error, and so on. So in this particular chapter, we are going to classify the errors in two broad categories. The first one, that is the systematic, or we can say controllable error, and the second one, that is the random or uncontrollable errors. In this particular chapter, we are just discussing the basic concept of the error and how the errors are classified in the two different categories. Okay, then let's start with errors in the measurement. Whatever the measurements are obtained for the experiment, they are not accurate as some sort of uncertainty has been associated with it. Suppose you are provided a length, a line has been provided to you, and if you have to measure the dimension of this particular length by using the scale, though you are very much accurate about the measurement, but suppose a scale which is provided to you, in general the scale has started with 0 and ends with, let's say, 10 centimeter, but due to some sort of error, or we can say due to some wear and tear, or due to some breakage of the scale, our scale start with, let's say here the breakage has been provided as our scale has been start with say 0.5 centimeter. Instead of 0, the scale has been start with 0.5 centimeter and ends at 10 centimeter. It means the scale itself measure the total dimension of 9.5 centimeter instead of 10 centimeter. We cannot measure the exact 10 centimeter diameter, and you are not aware about this particular difference of 0.5 centimeter. And if by using that particular scale, if you are going to measure this particular line, and if the reading shows exactly 10 on your scale, then what you are supposed to say? You are says that the length of the line which is given to you having the total dimension of 10 centimeter, but it is not the exact value. The exact value of the length of the line, that is the 9.5 centimeter, but due to some sort of uncertainty, due to some sort of, we can say, the failure of the measuring instrument, or we can say the failure of the measuring procedure, or any other factors, we are not supposed to measure the exact reading which is the requirement. So the difference of this particular measured value to the actual value, it shows the type of error. This is the type of error. So what is the error? Error when we are going to measure some experiment, and if the measurement is not accurate just because of the uncertainty which is directly associated with the measurement, then this particular uncertainty is known as a error generation form. To analyze the measurement data effectively, we need to understand the errors which are associated with it. Suppose on the highway side, you are going to perform the surveying process. Suppose there is some highway and you are here and you have to do a survey. The surveying leveling machine is been provided to here, and you are supposed to do the surveying process over this particular span of highway. So many vehicles has been passed through this highway, and due to the passing of the vehicles, the wind has been blown very fastly in the one particular direction because of the passing of the vehicle, speed of the vehicle, and the topographic condition of this particular location. And just because of this, there might some chance that whatever the surveying has been done by you will be deflected slightly than the original value, and due to this particular deflection, we can say that some sort of uncertainty associated with the measurement, we can say that some sort of errors has been generated. To eliminate such kind of errors, you have to provide some sort of correction factor. just providing this kind of correction factor, you can eliminate, or we can say you can cop up the error which are generated in the measurement system. What we are supposed to do, if we have to analyze the measurement data very much properly, or we can say very effectively, then what we are supposed to do, we need to understand the errors which are directly associated with it. Then we have to investigate the root cause, or we can say the source of the error which are occurred in the measurement, and subsequently we have to eliminate those causes of the error, or we can say those sources of the errors. The errors are broadly classified in the two different categories. The first one, that is the systematic error, or we can say controllable errors. If the measured value deviates from the true value by some fixed amount in the same nature, then we can say that it is the systematic error. As I have told you, if there is a difference in a particular scale, if your scale is start with the 0.5 centimeter instead of 0, then we can say that this is the particular deviation which generate each and every measurement, and whatever the measurement is going to be performed, the measurement itself having some sort of error, and the error is a very fixed, because in each and every measurement we are supposed to find the 0.5 centimeter difference in the actual value as well as true value. So we can say that this is the systematic error, or we can say the controllable error. We can control such kind of error, or we can say we can eliminate such kind of error by selecting the proper scale, by checking the calibration of the scales. So this is known as a controllable, or we can say systematic error. And the next one, that is the random error. The random error in which the deviation of the measured value from the true value is not fixed by any amount, or we can say is not fixed by the nature, then it is known as the random error. Suppose you are going to perform any kind of test over the surface. Suppose this is the length of the road and you are traveling the road with some sort of vehicle, we can say you are traveling on the bike and you are moving on the road, but you are not aware about the road condition, like what is the basic condition of the road, how much the friction has been generated, where the actually digging has been done, where the digs has been available over the road, or where the smoothness is provided or where the roughness is provided over the road. You are not supposed to aware about this. Then whatever the suspension ups and downs has been generated within your vehicle is not predefined, and if this kind of condition has been generated, then the random error has been generated. The random error is directly proportional to the friction value. We can say the transient defect which is generated in the experimental setup are the some sort of random error. As the name suggests, random error means there is no any particular linear way, or we can say there is no any kind of particular process has been utilized to identify some sort of random error. Just by means of proper experience, just by means of proper observation, and by means of proper investigation, you are supposed to find the root causes of the error as well as the error generation and the nature of the error of the random errors. So this is the basic errors which are generated in the measurement. Now we are going to discuss the last topic of the chapter, that is transducers. Transducers, as the name suggests, the transducers is also known as a detector or the sensing element, which transforms the sense information, or we can say the sense data, into the convenient form, or we can say that it is also known for the conversion of one form of energy to the another form of energy. If you remember the generalized measurement system, we have discussed a particular element known as a variable conversion element. The variable conversion element is used to convert the one form of energy into some another form of energy. So if I have to convert the one physical form of energy to another physical form of energy, or we can say if I have to convert the one physical form of information into the another physical form of information, then and then we are supposed to use particular VCE, variable conversion element, and the transducers are the form of variable conversion element. It is useful to transfer the sense information, or we can say the input. We are supposed to provide here the transducers, and the transducer output will be accessible for the human being, or we can say that whatever the output has been generated by the transducers is a very much convenient form to read and to understand properly. Transducers are classified in the mechanical, electrical, magnetic, piezoelectric as well as optical characteristics. As per the formation of the energy, as per the transformation of the energy, we are supposed to classify the transducers in the different categories. Now we are going to discuss the basic terms which are directly related to the transducers. The first one, that is the transducer efficiency. It is known as the ratio of the information delivered to the ratio of the information sensed, or we can say that in general terms, efficiency is equal to whatever the output has been generated divided by whatever the input has been provided. The same way here I have discussed whatever the information has been delivered by the transducer with respect to whatever the information has been sensed or collected by the transducers. This is known as the transfer efficiency. The next one, that is the primary transducers. Primary transducers means whatever the instrument or element which is directly making a physical contact with the physical quantity, and it will directly respond, or we can say sense, the physical change of the physical system, then such transducers are known as the primary transducers. Second one, secondary transducers. Secondary transducers transform the output of the sensing element to the analogous electrical circuit. What you are supposed to do? Suppose some sort of input has been provided to you. Here the transducer systems is utilized, and here the accessible information is required. Some sort of an electrical circuit has been provided over here. Then here the first primary transducers come into the picture. It will sense the information from the physical quantity, then it will transfer the particular information into the secondary transducers. This is the secondary transducer, and the secondary transducer will collect the information from the primary one and transfer to the electrical circuit. Here the electrical circuit or analogous circuit has been provided, and the electrical circuit will read the particular data information and then transfer it to the human accessible format. This is known as the basic working concept of the transducers. The figure shows input signal is directly transferred to the primary transducers, then the primary transducers through the intermediate analogous signal will transfer the data to the secondary transducers, and at the end the output signal has been generated by the transducer system. So this is the basic concept of the transducers. Now we are going to discuss the transducer which is useful for the mechanical system. In mechanical, or we can say automobile industries, the basic transducer that we are using is known as a linear variable differential transformer, or we can say that LVDT. LVDT stands for the linear variable differential transformer, in which what you are supposed to do, we are providing a basic concept of the electrical EMF generation, and by checking the generation of the EMF we can conclude that whatever the transformation of the core has been generated, and by checking the transformation of the core we can calculate whatever the difference has been generated within the parent system. The figure shows the basic schematic diagram of the LVDT, or we can say linear variable differential transformer. Now what is the basic constructional details of the LVDT? Then here very first the primary coil has been provided. Suppose this is the primary coil which is provided over here. Suppose the secondary coil has been provided. First secondary coil, we can say S1 is over here. The second secondary coil has been provided over here. We can say that is the S2. Both the S1 and S2 are very much symmetric to each other in terms of number of turns, in terms of number of voltage or whatever the EMF has been provided, in terms of the output voltage which is provided, and as well as the material which is used for the S1 and S2, or we can say that S1 is exactly the replica of S2 in the very initial case. The soft iron core has been placed over here. As we know that the soft iron core, once it will cut the magnetic field, it will generate the magnetic flux and it will perform as a permanent magnet. The displacement of the iron core is done by providing the arm, and the physical system has been placed over here. Suppose there is some sort of physical system which is connected with the arm, and the arm will move. If the arm will move, it will directly make a contact with the physical system soft core, and the soft core will start moving. Now let us understand the concept of the particular LVDT. Suppose in a very initial condition, here the primary coil has been placed over here, the first secondary coil over here, the second secondary coil over here. This is the position of the arm. In a very case number 1, this is the position of the arm. Once the arm will start moving, suppose the arm will placed over here, exactly in between the S1 and S2. What we are supposed to do, we are providing the voltage supply on the primary coil. Once the voltage has been provided, the primary coil will works as a generate the magnetic field, and the magnetic field has been cut by the particular soft iron core, and due to the cutting of the soft iron core magnetic field, it will also work as the permanent electromagnet, and because of this electromagnetic principle, or we can say because of this electromagnetic characteristics of the soft iron core, it will generate its own electric field, and the field has been, suppose this kind of field has been generated by the iron core. Suppose this is the magnetic field has been generated by the iron core. As from the figure you can check that particular S1 will cut the magnetic field, particular S2 will also cut the same magnetic field. So we can say that whatever the EMF generated in the S1, let's say E1, and the whatever the EMF generated into S2, let's say E2, is exactly same. E1 is equal to E2. So I can say that if E1 is equal to E2, the iron core is placed exactly in the center of S1 and S2. Now suppose the same concept has been provided. This is our primary coil, this is the first secondary coil, this is the second secondary coil. Let's say this is the S2, this is our S1. Suppose the core has been placed over here. This is the position of the core. Due to the magnetic field generated on the primary coil, the iron core will cut the magnetic field of the primary coil, and it will work as a electromagnet itself. It will generate its own magnetic field like this. Suppose this is the magnetic field generated by the particular iron core. Now from the figure you can check that the particular magnetic field cut by the coil S1 is, let's say, E1, and the coil S2 will not cut any sort of magnetic field which is generated by the iron core. So I can say that here E1 is very much greater than E2. If E1 is very much greater than E2, then I can say that the position of the iron core is towards S1. I can conclude that the position of the iron core is towards S1 instead of S2. Now the same case has been repeated for the S2 coil. Suppose this is our S1, this is our S2, and this is the position of the iron core. Now in the second case, what is happening? The magnetic field cut by S2 is very much higher than the magnetic field cut by the S1 itself. So here I can say that the value of E2 is very much greater than the value of E1. So I can conclude that the position of the iron core is towards S2 instead of S1. So by checking the value of E1 and E2, I can say that if both the E1 and E2 are equal, then the position of the iron core is at the middle point. If E1 is greater than E2, then I can say that the position of the iron core is towards S1, and if E2 is greater than E1, then I can say that the position of the iron core is towards S2. This is our final conclusion for the LVDT. The same concept has been discussed over here. So by using the LVDT, you can say that what is the position of the iron core and what is the actual displacement generated in the physical system. Just because of that the core is moving, and just because of the movement of the core the EMF has been generated. Now we are concluding our lecture with the some advantage and disadvantage of the transducers, or we can say the LVDT. The first advantage of the LVDT, that is it directly converts the mechanical displacement into the proportional electrical voltage. As we have discussed, whatever the displacement has been generated, it will directly convert into the EMF E1 or E2. It cannot be overlaid mechanically. It is very highly sensitive and provide a very good magnification because of the value of E1 and E2. It will also directly depend on the magnetic field generated by the soft iron core as well as the magnetic field generated by the primary coil. So the magnification is sufficiently good amount. It is relatively insensible to the temperature change. Whatever the temperature change has been generated, we are not supposed to bother about it, because the iron core and its magnetic field is not directly dependent on the change of the temperature of iron core itself, or the temperature of the primary secondary coils, or the temperature of the environmental condition. It is reusable and economical to the use. Now we are going to discuss a disadvantage of the LVDT. Only one disadvantage of the LVDT is there. It is not suitable for the dynamic measurement, because the core has its some mass and it leads to some inertia effect. Now what is the inertia effect, and how this particular mass has been directly generate the disadvantage for the LVDT? Let us understand. Suppose a pendulum has been provided, and if we are supposed to apply some sort of force over here, the pendulum will move here. Once you are going to cut the force, or we can say once you are just make a proper deflection and then you are releasing the pendulum, then the pendulum will moving like this. Due to its own mass, due to its own inertia effect, it will be move like this till some sort of time, and after the proper time, or we can say after the proper settling time, the pendulum will come to its rest position, and then it will generate the zero condition. So to cover the extreme position and to settle in the zero position, it will take, let's say, 10 or 15 seconds. So this 10 or 15 seconds is known as the settling time, and this settling time is generated due to its own inertia, or we can say its own mass. If the pendulum is massless, then this time is not required, it is directly zero. But due to its mass and its own inertia effect, it will deflect till some time frame, and then it will settle down. Same way, the core is moving towards S1, or we can say moving towards the S2, but we are not supposed to say that within the fraction of second the core is moving from one point to another point. Due to its own mass, own inertia effect, it will take some time to travel the positions. So this is the basic disadvantage of the LVDT. In today's lecture, what we have discussed, we have started with the errors in the measurement, and then we have discussed the transducers. From next lecture, we are going to start our new chapter, linear and angular measurement. Till then, thank you.